Greetings and welcome, everyone. My name is Nicole Egelhofer-Wells, and I am a faculty support and classroom consultant at the University of Arizona Global Campus. I will be the host of this session, A Breath of Fresh Air, Educator Self-Care and Open Access Education. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to Bill Davis and Jessi Upshaw. Bill Davis is a program chair and assistant professor in the Forbes School of Business and Technology at the University of Arizona Global Campus. Bill has extensive experience and education in all aspects of business, including consulting, management, leadership, sales, marketing, strategic planning, human resources, and organizational change. He has over 3 decades of experience working in the beverage industry, specifically in the PepsiCo system, a Fortune 500 company, serving in front and middle management, as well as executive level leadership positions. Bill is a pracademic who successfully transitioned his highly successful career into academia. He has over 18 years of extensive academic experience serving as a program chair, lead faculty, and other instructional roles. He loves furthering student learning and seeing student success. Dr. Jessi Upshaw is an associate professor and serves as the program chair of the Master of Arts in Special Education program in the Department of Education and Liberal Arts from the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Arizona Global Campus. She has worked in the field of developmental disabilities, behavior analysis, and education for over 20 years, and has previously served as a therapist, treatment center program coordinator, staff trainer, associate consultant, special education teacher, adjunct professor, and assistant professor. And now, without further ado, I will turn it over to them.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Our presentation, A Breath of Fresh Air, Educator Care and Self-Care in Open Access Education, will examine the connection between supporting specific students in open access education environments and educator wellness and self-care. We will guide a discussion of panelists revolving around educator well-being, self-care strategies, and creating supportive learning environments in open access education. These outcomes highlight the importance of prioritizing educator well-being and fostering a positive educational ecology in the context of student needs in open access education. Now, before we begin, let's meet our panel. Deanna Randle joined University of Arizona Global Campus as the Senior Director of Culture and Engagement for the Human Resources Department in February of 2022. Deanna has a BA degree in economics from Georgia State University, a master's of business administration from Argosy University, and she holds a mental health first aid certification. She has over 8 years of human resource experience working in the financial services industry prior to higher education. Her HR focus for UAGC spans across employee engagement, performance management, learning and development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Next, let's meet Dr. Nancy DeVore. Nancy is a business consultant and an associate faculty member at the University of Arizona Global Campus with an interest in bridging the gap between online learning and real-life experience. Dr. DeVore teaches industrial organizational psychology undergraduate courses. Nancy holds a Ph.D. in general psychology from Capella University and specializes in applied positive psychology with a focus on inspired change and how chance encounters can move people toward their higher purpose, and it unlocks possibilities. Next, we have Dr. Cara Metz. Dr. Cara is a professor at University of Arizona Global Campus and is the program chair for the BA in Health and Human Services. Dr. Cara received a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling and a doctorate in counselor education and supervision from the University of Cincinnati. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and economics from Ohio University. Dr. Metz has been licensed as a counselor since 2006, and she has worked in an elementary school, community, mental health, and a private practice, seeing clients from 6 to 80, favoring working with a transitional aged youth from 14 to 22. Welcome, Dr. Metz. Dr. Charles Holmes is next. He's a full professor and he serves as the chair of the Masters of Public Health program and the chair of the Institutional Review Board, IRB, at the University of Arizona Global Campus. During his tenure at UAGC, Dr. Holmes has received numerous accolades, including being designated a master teacher, a faculty career champion, and a faculty collaborator award winner, along with other community level designations for service. Dr. Holmes' research focuses on health education policy, curriculum development, and comparative health systems. Most recently, Dr. Holmes was called upon to speak on the COVID-19 pandemic, which resulted in multiple national presentations. Welcome, Dr. Holmes. And finally, Dr. Michael Robinson. Dr. Robinson has over 20 years of experience in education, serving many years as a K through 12 teacher, and now as an academic integrity administrator and faculty chair for doctoral students at University of Arizona Global Campus. He's published multiple works on educator wellness, and he is passionate about how mindfulness practices can improve your daily focus and functioning. Feel free to reach out for networking and collaboration with Dr. Michael Robinson. Now I'm going to pass this over to my colleague and one of the leaders in this whole panel who pulled it together, Dr. Jessi Upshaw. Jessi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bill. Hang on just a second here before I get started. As you saw in the title of today's session, we encourage everyone to take a breath of fresh air. So let's pause before we get to the content and our learning outcomes to take a breath or two together. If you'll indulge me. I feel better already. I hope that brought you some grounding or centering on this busy day of TLC after 3 wonderful days of TLC. Now, to set the stage for our panel discussion, let's examine the connection between supporting specific students in open access educational environments and educator wellness and self-care. More specifically, the relationships between faculty self-care and student support, educator self-care and addressing basic needs for students, and recognizing and addressing educator challenges. First, faculty self-care and student support. Studies such as faculty self-care in the age of COVID emphasize the importance of educator wellness in open access educational environments. The research demonstrates that prioritizing faculty self-care positively correlates with their ability to support diverse student populations in open access institutions, ensuring a more inclusive and supporting learning environment. Training programs for student success underscore the necessity for educators to engage in self-care practices, equipping them with the resilience and resources needed to effectively support students with diverse backgrounds and learning needs. In addition, addressing basic needs for student success is an important theme you'll hear from our panelists today. Reports such as Advancing Self-Care for Staff to Support Student Success emphasize the role of staff self-care in addressing the basic needs of students in open access educational environments. By ensuring staff well-being, institutions can enhance their ability to provide essential support services, addressing students' financial, emotional, and academic needs, fostering a positive learning atmosphere. Implementing supportive structures for adult learners requires educators and staff to engage in self-care practices, enabling them to adapt to the unique challenges faced by adult students and offer tailored guidance and encouragement. We also need to take a look at recognizing and addressing educator challenges. Studies such as Academics Should Make Time for Self-Care highlight the challenges faced by educators in open access educational environments and advocate for the incorporation of self-care routines in their daily lives. Acknowledging these challenges and encouraging self-care not only improves educator well-being, but also enables them to provide more effective support to students, fostering a positive learning environment for all. So that was a lot of research, and I really want to get to our panelists, but I just wanted to go through some basic concepts here before we get started to just set that stage for our panelists as they speak through some questions. And these foundations do set the stage for 3 themes that we identified: educator well-being, self-care strategies, and supportive learning environments. So after that review of concepts, let's get to these amazing panelists. I'm going to pass the microphone back to Bill to get us started with educator well-being.
Unmute, my error, my apologies. Jessi, thank you very much. And let's get it started. I like how you segued from the research and the foundation. So thank you very much for that. Let's get started with Cara. Cara, considering this question, what critical role does educator well-being play in the success of open access education?
Now it's my turn to accidentally unmute myself. So that is a great question. So we have to have wellness and well-being in order to be our best selves in the classroom. Educators who have a balance of wellness bolster their ability to be present with their students and provide a way to model a healthy lifestyle and well-being for their students. So our students have a lot going on. They have jobs, they have kids, they're taking care of sick parents. They might be, managing their own disability or illness themselves. And so a lot of times they struggle to find that balance and they feel overwhelmed. So by being a model for that wellness, we can demonstrate how to practice self-care, which incorporates a ton of different things. It's not just meditation or doing something nice for yourself. It could be as simple as putting up a boundary. This is my time when this is my self-time. And so maybe between these hours, you might not be able to get a hold of me, but I need to take care of me. But I also feel that even more importantly, we can be a model on how to do this in a non-judgmental way. So wellness is non-judgmental. And I think we all struggle with that a little bit. I will even say I struggle with it. When I do wellness strategies and meditation strategies with students and clients, I always struggled with breathing. And I always thought, I'm the worst. I can't get breathing right? And then someone told me a trick. So when you're breathing and you do your breath in, take a shorter breath in and a longer breath out, which actually alleviated some issues that I had with some anxiety. And just by taking that judgment piece out of that meditation, breathing actually started to work for me. So it's just kind of interesting. So really practicing that non-judgmental piece. In an open access university, there is a need for a positive and inclusive culture. So when educators take care of their well-being, they're able to be supportive and empathetic to meet the students where they're at, so that they can reach their goals and be successful. This also means that when an educator's wellness needs to be balanced, their minds are freer to make decisions and infuse creativity in meeting those students' needs. They can be more in tune with the vibes of the classroom and react appropriately. Faculty can be more in tune with the needs of their students, not just in the classroom, but also encouraging their own well-being and encouraging support systems, seeking mental health treatment if needed, referring students to supportive resources, as well as being that empathetic and understanding ear for a client without crossing into that therapist territory. And we're avoiding burnout. And I think that kind of goes into the next question. So I'll just leave it there. But when we're in burnout, we're not able to be present emotionally. And sometimes it can be kind of toxic or ineffective. It can be harmful to our students. So making sure that we have that well-being to avoid that burnout is always necessary.
Absolutely fantastic points on empathy and leading by example and taking care of ourselves, because we have to be our best selves if we're going to be educators. And Cara, thank you so much for that. I'm going to go right over to Charles and ask him to answer this same question, if you would, please. What critical role does an educator well-being play in the success here in open access, Charles?
Well, I know it's critical. As was brought up by Dr. Justin Harrison yesterday in the Dean's panel, being a 12-month open access institution, it comes with many challenges for instructors and students, the largest being the lack of downtime or off time. While traditional campuses may work on 9-month schedules and enjoy spring break or fall break, and right now they're getting ready to go into almost a month-long break in December, January, most online open access institutions do not operate that way. So at UAGC, we don't have those extended breaks to reset ourselves and our minds. So monitoring and enhancing our own kind of well-being is extremely important for us going forward. But yeah, I can't, I'm very excited to be a part of this panel, because I think this is something that's often overlooked, and something that will be very, very important for us in the years ahead.
Great points. And, you got me thinking about that now a little bit, plan our work our plan, our time, and make sure we're taking care of ourselves too, because we have a little different schedule here. No question about it. Thank you, Dr. Holmes. Let's go over to Dr. Michael Robinson. Michael, your thoughts.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you to Bill and Jessi for having me on this panel. I'm honored. I answer this question. I think back to Dr. Holmes's quote that he put in the beginning of this session, is the 3 things that we can control are effort, attitude, and decision making. If we're not at our best as educators, then we cannot be at our best in those 3 areas that we can control. So, when thinking about open access education, open enrollment, I'm honored to work for an institution like that. But there are some things that come with that: more students, more courses, more diverse needs for students. And, sometimes when we have too much on our plate and we're not taking care of ourselves, then we can't deliver that engaging, effective learning experience that we want to for every single student. And, we think of it, instead of putting our best into it, we think of it as another task on our checklist that we have to do. We're not mindful of the present moment. We're thinking about everything else that we have to do to get through the day, to get to that self-care later on. And our brains aren't fully there in that moment. So, I'll just say, I completed my dissertation on educator well-being, and it happens to all of us. Even if we don't think that we're not taking care of ourselves, and we think that we're giving it all to our students, we still, no matter what, if we're working 20 hours a week or 60 hours a week, we still need to make time to treat ourselves right. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michael, for those wonderful insights, and again, awareness building, bringing top of mind how we think, how we approach. So thank you very much. And next question: how do educators' physical and mental health directly impact their ability to provide high quality education and support to students? And Charles, let's go ahead and start out with you on this one.
Thank you for this question. It actually, when I saw the question, it takes me back to my favorite quote now, I guess, and it found it back in my doctoral work. It was from Ernest Boyer, the former president of the Carnegie Foundation, that no knowledge is more crucial than knowledge about health, and without it, no other life goal can be successfully achieved. And I think that if you add just the term one's own health, it still is fully applicable. If we don't know what our needs are and how best to take care of ourselves, we're not really going to be able to achieve everything that we're capable of. So with that in mind, educators' physical and mental health can significantly impact their ability to provide high quality education and support to students. This relationship has been the subject of numerous studies. And when I was looking into it, the 5 key themes that I saw emerge were burnout, mental well-being, emotional regulation, turnover, and personality. In terms of burnout and stress, stressed and burned out educators typically have reduced energy and enthusiasm for teaching, and then that leads to a decline in their effectiveness in the classroom. And it's certainly something that students can see and they sense it. Given UAGC's culture of care, this is of great interest to managers and leadership, as the goal of our culture of care program is not only directed at students, but also faculty and staff. So we're continuing to try and develop ideas on how we can not only improve the culture of care for students, but for the UAGC team as well. Mental well-being, educators with better mental health outlooks tend to create a more positive and supportive classroom environment, which in turn enhances student learning, performance, and persistence. If you think of just, days that you're in a good mood or days you wake up well, you had a good night's sleep, you're just more effective that day. And if you can imagine that being a more repetitive action where it's occurring more frequently, that's sort of how you would enter that classroom. And it's a really, really nice feeling if you can achieve it. And it's something that can occur with practice and kind of a dedicated focus to it. And that feeds off of what I think was the next point I brought up with emotional regulation. Educators lacking emotional well-being struggle to respond to students' needs effectively. And the emotional instability can lead to inconsistent behavior and decision-making. It also naturally reduces empathy. Just in my observations as an educator, if you're struggling to care for yourself, extending emotional care or empathy to others is a real challenge, and it can be even more challenging with students. Because if you can imagine, students aren't typically, reaching out to you on their best day. They're encountering a challenge, they need some support, they're looking for some help. And if you're struggling to kind of care for yourself, that student outreach can almost be, too much, and you're not going to receive it the right way, or you may not respond in the way that you normally would. So that's something that we always want to keep in mind. Another area that came up in my my research on this was, turnover and absenteeism. Teacher turnover and absenteeism due to burnout or health-related issues leads to an instability in the educational environment. The variety in instructors, we have associate instructors that teach a lot here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. We have full-time instructors. But if you can imagine from a student perspective, they have that continuity that we try to create in the classroom. But if you have that lack of continuity, or you have instructors kind of coming in and out, you don't have a full sense of the organizational hierarchy, who the program chair is, who maybe a course lead is, where the expert information is coming from, it gives you an unsettled feeling. It's just not a good feeling. So that's something that we always want to try to focus on when we're looking at self-care is, not only does it reduce the amount of times that you're going to be, absent or not feel your best, but it's going to also improve the continuity of just everything that you're doing, especially in the classroom. And then from my own published research in the area, it was found that online teachers who struggle to handle self-regulation and dynamic schedules required in this kind of 12-month space of online institutions, they typically suffer. The personalities that we found in our work to be the most successful in the online environment were those who displayed a higher level of agreeableness and emotional stability. Teachers who have confidence in their ability to meet the scheduling demands of the job and remain flexible to the changing needs of students consistently showed the greatest engagement and satisfaction in the classroom, and also received the highest feedback scores from students. So students are sensing these things, the lack of well-being that we may have. Conversely, the faculty that we found who struggled with openness, especially who were sensitive to stress or change, they really struggled in the online classroom. And unfortunately, many of them weren't able to make that transition because too often, and I think Cara would be able to speak to this, we don't seek help for burnout or other issues until maybe we're right at that cusp or it's too late. And in teaching, that's what we want to try and avoid. So to close, there is, a lot of empirical evidence across decades of research to support the idea that educators' physical and mental well-being definitely has a strong impact on our ability to provide high quality education and support students. Ensuring the well-being of educators is essential for creating a conducive learning environment and enhancing student outcomes.
Dr. Holmes, thank you so much for all that empirical research and everything you studied. And one thing, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about those dynamics in a classroom and just how the kind of influence and impact that an instructor has on them. Let me shift over to Cara. Cara, would you like to take this question too, please?
Sure. So kind of building on what Dr. Holmes talked about and what I talked about earlier, part of me being able to provide a high quality education for my students is to be a good model. So my students are going into the human services, psychology, applied behavioral sciences. These are all fields, and I'm sure this could be applicable to education and business, where you cannot be impaired while you're doing those jobs. And so if I can model and demonstrate how to be physically and mentally healthy, I am showing how to do that to my students. If I come in and I'm burnt out, I'm impatient, my physical or I'm dealing with maybe too much pain, because your physical really does bleed into your mental. It makes it harder to deal with everything. If I don't have that empathy in those patients, if I share signs of impairment, I am being a bad model of what the profession should be and how a professional should act. And so I almost feel like my modeling is one of the best ways that I can provide a high quality education to my students, to demonstrate what a provider should be.
What a fantastic point about modeling. And absolutely, I agree with you 100%. Thank you, Dr. Cara. Let's go to Dr. Michael. You want to take this?
Sure, I'd love to. I think of physical and mental health. My brain immediately goes to, not to overshare, but my own insomnia. Health, I think of energy and stamina. Now, I am not alone in the fact that as an associate faculty member at UAGC, I have a full-time job already. I wake up very early in the morning, and I have a very demanding job that involves artificial intelligence that's gotten only more demanding in the last 6 months or so. After my full-time job, then I focus on my associate faculty position and being a chair and committee member for students. So not getting a lot of sleep, and it really affects my energy and stamina. And sometimes I do have to go to the 12-hour mark, and I need to check myself. I mentioned even before this panel began, my afternoon brain, I call it, is, it gets to that point in the day where my energy level starts going down. My brain can't function. I can't put everything into the job. And whether we're teaching online or in the classroom, active listening and active engagement and really listening to what our students are saying and empathizing with them. If your energy levels are not there, your brain starts to go elsewhere. And you need to deliver constantly dynamic and engaging conversations with students and provide feedback to help them, especially at the doctoral level. It's very demanding. And so it utmost importance for physical and mental health. If our mental health is not there, then we start to lack in resilience. And resilience is just coping strategies, I say. It's the ability to resolve conflicts. It's the ability to know when you need to take a pause and take self-care. And it's, if an educator is struggling with mental health, it affects the students directly, because maybe they can't stay positive. Maybe they can't respond effectively to the emotional needs of the students. And that's what I'm most proud of, is my active listening and empathy. And if my mental health is not there, then I can't perform at the level I am so accustomed to.
Dr. Michael Robinson, thank you so much. And you talked about energy, positive energy, displaying that. It has to come across. And if we're not 100%, we're not going to be doing that. And thank you very much. Let's go to Dr. Nancy DeVore. Dr. Nancy, would you like to take this question, please?
Sure. What came to mind right away is that I don't rely only on mental and physical. I also rely on another component, and that is spiritual health. If I'm spiritually not ready to enter into a class, the mental and the physical aren't going to help me much. So that's just my approach. And as far as physical, I am very specific outside of the classroom about my physical life. And that specificity, I think, comes back in when I go in to teach a class, because if I've been very specific with my physical life outside of the classroom, I'm going to be modeling that automatically without even thinking about it. I work with a trainer, for example. This adds to my purpose of why I'm even getting physical. I'm also held accountable. And so I make that time sacred. If I don't, then there will be too many other interferences to me making that important. But that's really all I was going to add to what's already been said.
Dr. Nancy, thank you. And you give us another dimension to look at. So thank you so much. And so important to manage ourselves. Jessi, would you like to take us into some questions revolving around self-care strategies?
I would love to. Thank you, Bill. As we turn the conversation to self-care, Nancy, don't go too far, because I'm going to direct this first question to you
I'm right here.
From the faculty perspective. What practical self-care strategies are or should be offered to faculty and staff, which are tailored to the unique demands of teaching in open access education?
Well, I just really love this question, and that's why I told you I was interested in it to begin with. What we do here as teachers or in education in general, is so closely related to helping professions like healthcare and therapy. And Cara, you mentioned that you had worked as a therapist, and I have too. And the importance of self-care for helping industries or employees that work within helping industries is just top of the list. Because without it, you can get burned out, as we've been discussing. But there's more that happens that's a little different than burnout, and that is compassion fatigue. I think with the culture of care, it's really been a wonderful program. And the other side of that is that as instructors, we need to take care of ourselves in order to implement a culture of care. And if we think about compassion fatigue, what happens is it can be lessened with the benefits of social engagement, optimism, gratitude, and self-care. It's not just, taking time out and going to the gym. There's like a whole circle of things that can be done in order to reduce that compassion fatigue, because we all want to be the culture of care instructor. But it takes more than just that wanting to be it. We have to take some time away from our teaching to talk to other people, because this is a digital learning organization. We don't get to see each other face to face and talk. And the isolation problem with online learning is huge. I received both of my degrees in psychology online, and I had to learn how to do these things outside of the classroom. I had to learn, how can I step up my social engagement? How can I be more optimistic? And how can I be more grateful? And there's like a whole portfolio of things that we can do. But I just wanted to mention that about the self-care part of it. Again, just sticking with the helping industry model and making sure that you do stay positive. And Bill Davis is so good at describing what it takes to keep that optimism elevated all the time, but especially when you're engaging with students. Not getting discouraged if they don't turn something in quite on time, or if they didn't listen to your advice, or if they, text you at midnight. It's just like, I've just learned it's no big deal, because I'm here to help. I'm not here to get frustrated with anything, and I can just be flexible. Maybe that student has something going on that isn't evident to me. I just take a breath like we did at the beginning of our session, and I just say, well, what's really going on here with me and with the student? And sometimes if I've been frustrated with the student, I have to give myself a little distance. I have to wait, an hour or two before I respond to the text or the email. I have to think through, okay, what did the student tell me in their introduction to me in the class that might give me a clue in how I can help them next? My big mantra is I'm here to help, but I'm not here to be a doormat. So, yeah, some research at Harvard discovered in their positive psychology lab that it's not possible for the brain to process both positive and negative at the same time. That's why it's so important to keep the optimistic side of your thinking active, because you're just going to cancel out those intrusive thoughts, those thoughts that you don't really want to share with your students or anybody else. And if you keep that positive, those other things that don't have a chance. So those are just some of my care strategies and how I use them in the classroom.
Wow, Dr. DeVore, thank you. A few of those things I'm writing down here to remember. And some of the most important pieces is that you can't process both positive and negative. That brings mindset to a whole nother level. Thank you for sharing those strategies and considering compassion fatigue and how we are truly in a helping profession. Deanna, I want to turn this to you to expand on this from an HR perspective. So same question, what practical self-care strategies are or should be offered to faculty and staff, which are tailored to our unique environment?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Jessi and Bill, for putting this together and inviting me to speak. Very excited to participate, and I have already learned a lot from the first couple of questions, so happy to share my thoughts here too. I think that there are a couple of things that I like to keep in mind day to day. I actually went into our Whova app earlier and was in the culture of care community, and the word grace was just popping up all over the place, right? And I think as important as it is to have grace with others, so if you are, we work in a very demanding industry, helping profession. I think it's as important as it is to have grace with others, it's very important to have that same grace with yourself, right? Burnout is the number one topic, and it's sometimes it feels inevitable, right? So you have to have a little compassion with yourself to understand that sometimes, you have a lot of demands, but it's okay to reprioritize. It's okay to, if you've set a previous expectation, it's okay to reach out and say, hey, I know we communicated this day. I have a lot on my plate. Is it okay if we flex this deadline a little bit? I think that as much as I think it's important, I think communication is key. It's not always easy to take that one second to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? I'm so sorry. I haven't forgot about you. I'm getting back around to it. But I think that it's always good to assume positive intent too. So if somebody doesn't respond to my email, I'm not feeling like I'm being ignored. I'm taking a step back and saying, maybe they also have a lot on their plate. Let me send a friendly reminder. I think all of those things Nancy said this too, you can't have a positive and a negative thought. I say all the time, change your mind, change your life, right? So you can have that negative thought, but if you take a second and say, you know what, maybe that's not how the person intended for me to receive that information. I think small things like that make a big impact in how we go about our days and how we are able to interact with each other, and how we are able to carry out that culture of care, because again, it does extend from the faculty and student over into our staff, and we want to make sure that we're treating our colleagues in a way that is supportive to them, and so that they can then interact with students in a way that is impactful to the student. And so I think all of those things, Cara talked about blocking off time and taking time for yourself. I think it's important to even do that with your calendar, right? Like if we have things that we know that we need to prioritize, I think it's okay to block off time on your calendar to get those things done. And then maybe you do have to say, hey, can we push this meeting back a day or two? I think all of those just very small things can make a very big impact in the way that we carry ourselves, and then also, again, how we can impact each other and our students.
Thank you so much, Gianna. Just so many strategies that we can implement from day one. Appreciate that. To honor our time, I'm going to ask if Cara, Charles, or Michael, if you have any strategies you want to add, if you can put them in the chat as well as our audience members so that we can get to some of the other components as well. And on that note, following up on more self-care strategies, Michael, let's start from the faculty support and faculty perspective. What resources and techniques are available for faculty to support managing stress, setting boundaries, and fostering that healthy work-life balance within the context of online teaching and learning?
Great. Thank you, Jessi. Yeah, I mean, I think an institution can offer so much as far as professional development, wellness programs. What I found in my research, however, is no matter what an institution offers, it's not a long-term solution to burnout. It's on the individual to really use their own self-care strategies. So, again, we've mentioned we're in the relationship building industry, and we always put more pressure on ourselves than leadership or the institution will put on us. But, I'll just start with a short story here. About 10, 15 years ago, as a high school teacher and coach and teachers union head, I was putting so much time into every day that I would be the first one at school at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would finish my classes. I would go to coach. I wouldn't get done with practice or a game until 6, 7 p.m. And then I would still be showing up at students' houses, eating dinner with their parents, discussing their child's education. By the time I got home, it'd be 9, 10 o'clock. My poor dog was sitting there alone all day. And then guess what? I get home and I deal with parent emails until I go to sleep. And then I wake up and I do it all again. So I got extremely burnt out. And I had to set boundaries somehow. So especially in a job like this here, where we do have the luxury of stepping away from the computer or stepping and giving ourselves time and space and grace, as it's been mentioned. A big strategy that I use is cognitive reappraisal, is recognizing our emotions, reflecting on our emotions, and reframing that emotion to say, you know what, like I am going to give myself grace. I just made a mistake. It's okay. Mistakes happen, and move on from it. And I think, mindfulness practices, I keep touching on this, but in today's age of instant information, attention deviation, it's ultra important that we're focusing on the present moment when we're in the present moment. And that's the biggest self-care strategy there is, to me, is that creates a work-life balance. Because when you're working, you're focusing on your work. When you're not working, you're focusing on self-care, and it should be in the forefront of your head. Mindfulness practices, people have this image of it as, oh, it's Eastern philosophy, it's meditation, it's this, that. It's really just about shifting your focus and really concentrating on one thing at a time. And, like I've mentioned, holding those boundaries is also caring for yourself. I had to actually learn a phrase from my old chair here at UAGC, Dr. Jody Hamurda, it's okay to say no. And I still use it with dissertation students today. The lead faculty, they constantly reach out, hey, can you take on more students? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I have a mantra now. I just say, thank you for asking me. I currently do not have the bandwidth. Please continue to keep asking me though. So it's become a mantra to me, and a lot of the doctoral program chairs know that. They will see that email from me quite often, because I just know my breaking point now. And I think reflecting on your emotions, and cognitive reappraisal is a fancy word of saying DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, is really looking at your own emotions and giving yourself grace and saying, like, yeah, it could have been different, but here's the positive of it. Here's what you learned from this experience, and how do you move forward?
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. All great reminders for us, and those specific techniques of setting boundaries, and also respecting that others are setting their boundaries as we move through with grace. Again, just to honor time, because we have one more topic I really want to get to, and several great questions from our audience. Let's use this as an opportunity for resource building. Panelists and those in the audience, let's put in any other resources or techniques that are available to you in the chat, and you can continue to build that in the Whova app after the session, of additional resources you may want to share out. And with that, I'm going to pass the microphone back to Bill as the panelists consider supportive learning environments.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jessi. And Michael, you're one of the most authentic and genuine leaders that I know. And so good to hear you and Deanna talking about giving ourselves grace and so forth. You can bet that I'm going to go back to this and listen a few times and take a few more good notes. So there is some great value in what we're doing today. So kudos to everyone on this panel. Charles, on this one, let's start with you. How can we as a university community create supportive and inclusive learning environments for both educators and students, including strategies for promoting collaboration, communication, flexibility, empathy among all the stakeholders, so we can enhance the overall educational experience?
Creating a supportive and inclusive learning environment in higher education is a vital aspect for our long-term success. Long-term success as educators and as an institution, and just as people. Research in this area, when I went through it, remains abundant, which is nice, and kind of gives us a bit of a map that we can use to maximize the educational experience on both sides, from the educator and the student. Several studies I found emphasize the importance of collaborative efforts among faculty members to create that inclusive learning environment. And this can occur in a variety of ways, whether it's faculty working together on curricular design, internal and external projects. Bill, you and I have done gosh knows how many interviews together at this point, and through the use of virtual learning communities. For the latter, these communities can bring students and faculty members together to share insights and best practices, and even discuss challenges that they're facing. As was brought up, we don't always have that face-to-face connection, but as long as you feel like you have some outlet for it and someone to communicate with, it can make a world of difference. And I take great pride in knowing that the Department of Health and Sciences and the College of Arts and Sciences here at UAGC, we're the first department to have both the virtual student learning community and a shared faculty learning space. And those are going to be, those are dynamic spaces. They're touched upon quite often by both students and faculty. And it gives us, again, a space that we can all work together in that spirit of collaboration. From communication, I think it's absolutely critical and crucial for promoting inclusivity. Creating spaces for open and respectful communication between faculty and students naturally fosters this idea of an inclusive environment. If you feel like you're welcome, you think of I still love TV theme songs. If you think of the Cheers theme song, and everybody, or just even the show of, when you walk in the door, it's like, hey, Norm, or whatever it may be. That idea of the inclusiveness, that's what you want to kind of instill in a classroom. Now, it's more challenging in an online classroom, but it can still be done. And the idea is that you're utilizing the online discussion boards, you're using these virtual spaces to enhance communication in the online environment. And these tools help to facilitate that meaningful interaction, providing opportunities for, again, people to express themselves, engage in steady dialogue with whether it be peers or faculty. It just gives that sense of community, like I belong here and I'm going to be more comfortable expressing myself and feel included. Flexibility, I think it goes a couple of directions. We use that universal design for learning in our classroom. So to me, I think that's a positive. I know it, it can go both ways depending on the type of educator, but I see it as a benefit because from a faculty standpoint, you're creating something that can be accessed by all students regardless of their background or ability. It's going to be uniform and it's going to have that continuity. From a faculty perspective, the UDLs provide faculty with a known space so that, even if I create the classroom, I know that one of my faculty can jump in there and utilize their subject matter expertise. They're not, spending that time worrying about creating every little piece of it. The foundation's there, and then they can come in with their expertise. The same for the student. They learn how the Canvas classroom operates. They go into the classroom, they know where things are. So it immediately puts them at ease and they're able to, begin to, really absorb the material.
Absolutely.
One aspect of flexibility, though, that I was thinking is the idea that, scheduling does remain crucial. As discussed earlier, we are on a 12-month schedule. So that flexibility and from a management perspective, that's something we need to really be cognizant of. And then the closing idea of the empathy, it does come naturally for some, but it can be learned. The idea is the key component is in the culture of care. You want to approach each message you receive with empathy because that's how you want your messages of help to be received as well. If I reach out for help to Cara or to Bill or to anyone on the panel, I want them to know that I'm asking for help and they're going to receive it that way. Students want us to do the same thing. So being cognizant of time, I'll pause there, but I think there are a lot of great paths for us to go forward and a lot of wonderful resources that we have at UAGC, especially with our parent at UA.
Absolutely. And, having that safe space, it's uplifting. I can't tell you how many times we've had water cooler discussions or you go into a student club or you and I get together to talk about something that's upcoming. Very uplifting, and it picks me up. So I appreciate everybody on this panel because everybody is always receptive to collegiality, collaborating, and lifting each other. So important. Charles, thank you. We're running a little short on time as I'm noticing some of this too. But real quick, Michael, Nancy, Cara, just any final comments really quick, if you would, on the supportive learning environment?
I just wanted to add really quick, we talk about collegiality and humor and having those great conversations like I've had with you, Bill. It's really important to honor your social relationships and your social support network as self-care as well. I put pictures of my close friends and family above my computer. I put quotes from my friends. I find a couple colleagues here at UAGC that I meet with on a weekly basis and do not talk about work at all. We just crack jokes and we laugh together. That's it. So I think that is one of the biggest self-care things that we could do for ourselves is give ourselves time with our friends, honestly.
Thank you so much, Michael. Quick comment, Cara, any? Nancy, you can pass because we're gonna head to the finish line here.
I'm just gonna say, Michael, what a great point about social support. There's so much research, including my own, that emphasizes how social support is really the factor that levels mental health and physical health, our job satisfaction, all of that to prevent burnout. So make sure that you're keeping in contact and you have those good support systems.
Have a few best friends around work, no question about it, and extend yourself too. Take that initiative. I mean, there's a lot of great things when you open a door. Nancy, any final comments? Because we're just about to the finish line.
Yeah, I don't think there's a one size fits all when it comes to self-care. And I think it would be difficult to offer that as a tip hotline or whatever at UAGC for students or for faculty, because it's kind of like the Home Depot strategy where you can go into Home Depot because they have everything, but you're not going to build a house without the elbow grease. So, that's kind of my thought on it. I'd love to see more self-care happening for instructors and for students, but I think it needs some more thought.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And
Yeah.
Dr. Jessi and I want to thank our panelists for their insight, their expertise. This was really wonderful, no doubt about it. And again, I'm going to watch this a couple times. But right now, let's open up the conversation to our audience really quick.
Well, and to respect time and for self-care and human breaks, if you could put it in the chat, what resources would be available in an ideal paradigm to support faculty well-being? And panelists, we had a few questions that came either through the chat or through the Whova platform. To respect your boundaries, if you want to answer those in the chat after the presentation, this conversation can keep going after we finish. I just want to give everyone a chance to take a few minutes before our final TLC presentation. So participants, if you want to share anything that would be an ideal resource to support faculty well-being, would love to see it in the chat. And panelists, I posted them here in the chat, but if you want to consider and then later respond to how we can model and support self-care for our students. As educators, what steps should we take to promote self-care along with nurturing a sense of self-awareness and belonging? And as Dr. Lozano posted earlier, in regard to self-care, how can UAGC's Faculty Wellness Committee support faculty? So again, we have an asynchronous opportunity to continue this conversation if you go to your Whova platform. And Nicole, I'm going to pass it over to you so that we can get ready and allow everybody a little time to pass through to the next presentation. Thank you all for being here with us.
Yes, thank you to our moderators and panelists for sharing their insights, and thank you everyone for your participation in today's session.